Welcome back to the If You Are podcast. If you are new here, my name is Alexa and I'm the host. I talk a little bit of my personal life here and there, but this podcast is mainly about my faith. So this week has been one of those weeks where when the week feels longer than what it should have been, than what it actually is. Like it just feels longer than what it should be because of like so many things going on. That's kind of how my week has been. There's been just so many things going on in my personal life, and I just feel like this week has been like, it just feels long. It's like time extended. It feels long. All the things that have been happening in my life, it's only been like a week and a half, but it feels like years. Like it feels like years. And that goes hand in hand in what we're going to be talking about today. And today we are talking about waiting, being in the waiting, just waiting. And I love this topic, but I also hate this topic because I'm not a patient person. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't have any patience at all. I have no patience, child. Like, I have no. Okay, well, actually, my patience is better than what it used to be. So let me not like downplay that, because back then, like before Christ, like oh yeah, I had no patience. Like I was done. If I was done, I was done. And so today we're reading Psalms 27. So as like background context, the person who wrote this was David in the Bible. Verse 1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom should I dread? I think of somebody not wanting to face something head on and running. And I also think of like a mirror, because like a mirror is a reflection of like you, right? Like a mirror, we don't want to face it sometimes. You know, when you look real busted, like you just look real busted and crusted, and you do not want to look in the mirror, like you don't want to look in the mirror because you're like, I just know I look ratchet right now. Like I know it. Like I know it, you know, and you're about to step outside and you don't got time to get ready, and you're like, bro, like I need to see how I look before I leave, because like I need to fix myself. But like in the back of your head, you're like, I know I look really like bad right now. Like I low-key don't want to face myself. I don't want to face it, you know? So I think of that. And you want to run away, you want to get your own way, you want to do whatever you think is best for you. I think a lot of people today do that. And even people who say, I'm not running away from my problems, like I'm facing them just in a different way. That's just how I am. You know, those people that say that and you see exactly what they're doing to themselves from like an outside perspective. But when you tell them that, they just don't understand. Like they don't grasp it. Like they think it's normal. They've normalized it in their head. Like this is how I am. Like if I have to get drunk and get high to numb myself so that I don't have to talk about my feelings, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. And we all know somebody like that. And we've all been there before too, because I know I have. So I'm not just saying that just to like point the finger, like I've been there too. I also do want to point out that before he said, whom should I dread? He said, the Lord is a stronghold of my life. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? And I can tell that David, who's writing this, like in modern times, he would be saying something like, yeah, like I was running away from God, like a lot. Like every time I faced something, I would run away, and I was relying on myself. I was trying to sustain myself and trying to keep myself sane. And you can tell he came to this point where he realized the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? And I really love that. Like many Psalms, King David wrote this from a season of trouble, yet it is a song of confidence and triumph, because David was not in darkness or ultimate peril, because the Lord was his light and salvation. God himself brought light to David's life. He did not despair in darkness and all that it represented. His life was filled with the Lord, and his life was filled with light. David was a skilled, experienced warrior and must have been a man of impressive physical strength. Nevertheless, he looked to the Lord as the strength of his life. David knew something of what the Apostle Paul would write many years later. Ephesians 6:10, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. If we rarely know what it is to have God be the strength of our life, perhaps it is because we trust in so many other things for strength. We find it easy to trust in our wisdom, our experience, our friends, and our resources. David knew a strength greater than all of these. Verse 2, when evildoers came against me to devour my flesh. My foes and my enemies stumbled and fell. Verse 3. Though an army deploys against me, my heart will not be afraid. Though a war breaks out against me, I will still be confident. David used the poetic tool of repetition to make his point and bring together parallel ideas. Because God was his light, his salvation, and his strength, there was really no reason to fear or be afraid. David remembered how God had proven himself reliable in the past. There were times when the wicked or even an army came against him. Yet God still showed that he was David's light, his salvation, and his strength. David's confidence in God was battle tested. He did not have fair weather faith that lived in always easy circumstances. This isn't the joy of a man in a comfortable monastery. This is the song of a man who knew God's goodness even in danger and despair. David is going through a life-threatening situation. When he's writing this, I can tell by the words that he's using. And not only that, even then he's still praising God. Even then he still believes. And he literally says right here, I will still be confident. And a lot of people want to put confidence in themselves and be like, I got this. Like, I have the control. I'm going to micromanage it. I'm going to play God and I'm going to get my way. And let me tell you something. Nobody makes good decisions when they're desperate. If you try to self-sustain yourself, if you try to keep yourself sane, like, you're going to lose yourself. I was on the phone telling that to my friend earlier, telling her, if you don't have full confidence in the Lord and you don't fully put your all and your efforts into that, when your circumstances around you crumble, you're also going to crumble with it. Eventually you will. Verse 4, it says, I have asked one thing from the Lord. One thing. We all have that one thing that we're waiting on. We all don't play. Don't lie to yourself. Don't do it. We all have that one thing. We all have that one thing, whether it's healing, whether it's deliverance, whether it's financial breakthrough, whether it's a relationship. One thing I have asked, and that will I in fact seek and run after. One thing I have desired of the Lord, and I'm determined to have it. Like I said earlier, like that one thing, it drives us. It drives us. And sometimes it drives us towards God, and sometimes it drives us insane and away from God. I'm telling you right now. And after David says this, he makes 3 points, and we're going to read them right now. This is the first point. To dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. The second point, gazing on the beauty of the Lord. And the third and final point, seeking him in his temple. In his temple, we're not talking about an actual building, an actual temple. Like, we're talking about his presence. And when I read these 3 points, I know that for some of us, we're unable to relate to this level of devotion and godly desire that says there's one thing, and that's the thing, to have his presence and to know him. Because most people wouldn't choose him. It's true. Most people wouldn't choose him. Most people wouldn't. And we ask ourselves, why is it that David wanted so much these things above other earthly desires? Why is it that there was such a purity to David's desires? Assuming that this is his true focus, and there's no reason not to, we're forced to admit sometimes that it's not ours, and we wonder why it's his. But if we go back and read about David's life, we understand why David's focus was so singular toward the Lord, and it was because he suffered so much during his life. I don't know the full story of David because I'm not good at remembering everything I've read. I've read a lot, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But I know that David was king. He was king. He had a lot of wives, and his son wanted to kill him. So you can imagine that he was suffering a lot. And you can say it was self-inflicted because he made a lot of bad decisions, but you can also say it was just life, too. I mean, his son wanted to kill him. I mean, that's insane. He went through a tremendous amount of suffering, which eventually pressed him into a posture of seeking God. We're all going to face an issue, or we're all going to face some kind of suffering where we just can't sleep at night. And we come to a place in our lives where we have the motive to press in. But not everybody does. Just because someone is having a hard time does not mean that they're going to press in on God. But that's what happened to David. The more struggles he faced, the more he pressed in on God, the more he wanted to know God. And it's always unsettling when something happens in our lives that you know causes us to see and admit that our relationship with God yesterday is not good enough or deep enough for today. It's a challenging realization. In other words, the resources of my walk with God may have been sufficient for what I was dealing with yesterday, but those resources are not going to get me through. That level of relationship with God, that level of intimacy with God, that amount of prayer and devotion is not going to get me through now. I have to step up. I have to press in. I have to know Him more. I have to find a deeper walk with God or I'm not going to make it. And this is one of the things that I was talking about to somebody not too long ago about accountability. You're going to be held accountable for all the things you did or didn't do here on earth. And when you die, you're dying alone. Everybody's going to die alone. I don't care who you are. Everybody's going to die alone. And everybody's going to face judgment. And everybody's going to face the Lord one day. And they're going to realize whether they truly, genuinely sought God, like actually seeked His face in everything, in the good, in the highs and the lows and everything, or if they didn't. Verse 5 and 6, for He will conceal me in His shelter in the day of adversity. He will hide me under the cover of His tent. He will set me high on a rock. Then my head will be high. Above my enemies around me, I will offer sacrifices in His tent with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. David knew that there was a special blessing and protection for the one who earnestly sought God. It wasn't a promise to prevent all trouble, but to give security and blessing even in the midst of it. David believed that a life spent seeking God would know a measure of safety and security even in the presence of enemies all around. Even though I think that realization hit David pretty often, it's not necessarily the response of everyone to go through a difficult season and then respond by pressing in. But in David's life, his sufferings seemed to refine his desires in such a way that this just became an all-consuming passion for the Lord in his life. In other words, the Lord became his one thing. I want the Lord to be my one thing. It doesn't mean David was perfect. It doesn't even mean that he stopped struggling with fear when he dealt with issues. It just meant that his focus became refined. When I think of refined, I think of under pressure and I think of fire. You know when you go to the stores that sell jewelry and you look at the diamond ring and you're like, wow, it's like really nice. But it doesn't start out looking like that. I'm assuming, because I'm not one of those people that does jewelry, so I don't know. But I imagine and assume that it starts off like just a piece of metal. It looks nothing like a diamond ring at all. And then what? You have to mold it, you have to shape it, you have to hit it, you have to put it under fire and then shape it to how you want it. And then at the very end, it comes out looking like a diamond ring. And that's what I imagine God doing when He refines us. He's like shaping us into like a beautiful ring. And we're like under fire, we're under pressure. And then at the right moment, when He sees exactly how He wants it to look like, He stops. And He's like, boom, that's exactly how I want it to look like. When we're in the place where He wants us to be, where our desires are refined, He stops and He's like, that's exactly what I was waiting for. That moment right there. And then we come out different people. Like we come out as new creations in Christ. We come out stronger. We come out more matured in our faith. We come out like David. I am confident. Confidence in the Lord. Colossians 3:1-2. So if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. And this is exactly the place where God wants us to be when He's refining our focus. Setting our minds on things above and not on earthly things. And the verse that I just read, Paul wrote it. And what does Paul have in common with David? He was pressed into this posture. He was pressed through the circumstances of life into this place of making God his one thing. And so his word to other people was, set your mind on that one thing, to focus your heart on the Lord and not fixated on earthly things. When you haven't been pressed through difficulties and trials, the things of this world seem inviting, and you even kind of think to yourself, I don't know, I think I'd like that. I think I'd like to try that, or I'd like to be involved in that, or I'd like to experience that. When you haven't got into that posture of inviting God into your suffering, when you haven't got into that posture of pressing in, you invite the world and people around you, depending on your circle of friends and how they act and like what priorities they have. You're inviting people in the world to tell you how to cope with your suffering. You start doing things you normally don't do, and you know that's not you. You know you're running and you know you're hiding. You start doing things that you don't normally do. You start drinking, you start smoking, you start numbing yourself. You start running away. You start going relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, settling for the bare minimum. And like I said earlier, set your minds on the things above, not on earthly things. And that's exactly what happens to people. Put that verse in reverse, because that's what's happening when you're not facing, you're not seeking God's face, you're not pressing in. You're putting the earthly things above God. You're putting relationships above God. You're putting substances above God. And you kill yourself. Like, spiritually speaking, you kill yourself. You get depressed. You start lashing out. You get angry. You start rebelling. And you're fixated on the earthly things. You're not fixated on the things above, but you're fixated on earthly things now. But one thing people don't realize is when you do that, you're just going in circles. Because when that's over, when all that's over, and when you've numbed yourself and you realize that this life is over in a whisper, and that you have to come down to the reality of your situation, and you come back to reality, and then you get sad again, and you lash out again, and then again in circles. You start doing things you know you shouldn't be doing, things that probably you really don't really like to do, but you do it anyways because you're trying to numb yourself, you're trying to run away. And it's a cycle. And that's the life that I can imagine David went through. He went in circles. He was running. He was not facing. It causes an individual to become refined in their focus and to make God their one thing. Verse 7, Lord, hear my voice when I call. Be gracious to me and answer me. And this is the point where many of us come to. We come to a point of, Lord, hear my voice when I call. Be gracious to me and answer me. And we're all seeking for that one thing. But we realize that this whole time, the one thing that we need to be seeking is Him. It is not in ourselves, but it's in Him. Verse 8, my heart says this about you. Seek His face. Lord, I will seek your face. When David wrote these things, he was under attack. When these words came to him, he was struggling. He was challenged, and yet because he had made God the one thing in his life, he was able to come back and say, but this is what the Lord is going to do. He's going to take care of me. And you can actually sing and make melody in your heart, even in the midst of some of the most challenging and trying circumstances of life. And that's when you know you've made God your one thing. Verse 8 is where someone comes to the realization in that all that they were seeking all along was Him. And you say, seek my face, I am here. Verse 9, do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not leave me or abandon me. And I can tell that David here probably thinks that God is hiding and not hearing him. At the end of verse 9, it says, God of my salvation. And God of my salvation actually means God of my deliverance. So verse 11, because of my adversaries, show me your way, Lord, and lead me on a level path. This was a simple prayer for a life of true discipleship. David didn't want to live his way, but the Lord's way. Here, King David spoke to you and me. David didn't ask for an easy path, but instead a level or even place, a place of secure standing. David is basically saying, help me to be more obedient because of my enemies. People usually pray, help me to be more courageous because of my enemies. Help me get rid of my enemies. Or Lord, overcome my enemies. These are the prayers that people usually say. But when's the last time you prayed, Lord, make me more of a reflection of who you are because of my enemies? Verse 12, do not give me over to the will of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, breathing violence. In asking for a smooth path, he wasn't asking for an easy life, but for a stable and secure place to stand against the storms of this life. David, seeking after God and his knowledge of the Lord, led him to this triumphant statement. He would have given up, but he knew that the good God would find a new way to show his goodness in this life as well as the next. Verse 13, I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. In other words, in the beginning of verse 13 where it says, I am certain, he's saying, I believe. I believe. I no longer subscribe to self-sustaining myself and this self-love and that I'm going to do what's best for me. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I believe that I will see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. I believe that I will see the Lord come through for me and that He hears me. When you're praying for the Lord to take you out of your situation and to make a statement like this that says, I believe that I'm going to see the goodness of the Lord right here in the land of the living. What David is saying, and this is not just positive thinking. David is saying, I believe God is going to protect and preserve my life. I believe it. And it's hard to express words of faith when we're going through intense challenges and when we're even unsure of what the future holds. But it's important to speak words of faith. Speaking faith in God's ability to make a difference in our lives, to protect us, to deliver us from whatever present threat we happen to be facing. This was all David. David is an example that in the midst of trials, in the midst of petitions for deliverance, to speak that word of faith. Lord, I believe. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to protect. I believe in your ability to preserve. I believe in your ability to deliver. Verse 14. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart be courageous. Wait for the Lord. Waiting on the Lord speaks of a positive, patient, eager anticipation of the Lord's work in your life. It's not sitting around just waiting, wishing, and hoping upon a star, or saying, I really hope. It is an eager expectation. Obviously, it's not something you currently have. That's why you're waiting for it. So it's very important to see that. Ephesians 6:10, finally be strengthened by the Lord and by his vast strength. And I just want to say, the Bible doesn't expect us to be strong in ourselves. God doesn't expect you to be strong in yourself. Be strong in him. Be strong in the Lord. Let your strength come from him. John 14:27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Don't let your heart be troubled or fearful, and keep your focus and trust in the Lord. He encourages us to seek after God and wait on the Lord and to take courage in him. Be of good courage. And one thing that the enemy loves to do is he loves to take us in circles. I feel like people think that he's a God of like doing instantaneous things, and it's like, no, it's a process, but you have to open up to it and you have to allow it. And one thing I would encourage you to do is to open up to the process and to allow God to refine you and to refine your focus and priorities. Because this culture of self-sustaining yourself and self-love and doing it all on your own and micromanaging every single thing you want in your life, let me tell you, it's not going to work. And it doesn't work like that. And you're going to lose yourself in holding on to everything you possibly can. You're going to lose yourself. And I just love how God, he opens his hands and he allows us to just put everything in his hands, but so many times we run away. So I encourage everyone to seek him and to wait and to allow him to do what he wants in your life. The idea behind wait on the Lord is not a passive sitting around until the Lord does something. Yes, God gives us strength, but we don't expect him to come as if he were pouring it into us as we sit passively. He brings it to us as we seek him and rely on him instead of relying on our own strength. If we are weak, it is because we do not wait on the Lord. We should wait on the Lord as a beggar waits for handouts at the rich man's door, as a student waits to be taught, as a servant waits on his master, as a traveler waits for the directions of the guide, as a child waits upon his parent. I think a lot of people have this idea of waiting and they're just sitting around waiting for it to happen. And people don't realize that God is not going to do anything instantaneous. Like, God is not going to do anything instantaneously and just instantaneously get you out of your situation. No, he's not going to do that. It requires your faith, your work, and your dedication and pressing and seeking. That's what it requires. And waiting and seeking is never wasted when you're pouring yourself out before the Lord. It's never wasted. And I just encourage everyone to seek and to not run away from the transformation that God is trying to do in you, to truly seek the Lord and to pray and to read. Because let me tell you something, if you're not doing those things, you're just waiting for something to happen, no. Like, you have to seek him wholeheartedly, and you're just gonna have like almost this new identity in Christ, this new way of knowing him in such an intimate way. Suffering really does bring you closer to God, but only if you allow it. And people just think that he's gonna just pop out of the sky and like heal you. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to be seeking and yearning and trusting and believing, just like David. Like, you have to come to this place where David was. You have to come to that heart posture of what David had, where he said, I am certain that I will see the Lord's goodness. Like, I believe. I'm not going to put my faith in man or mankind. I'm not going to put my faith in people. I'm not going to put my faith in what people are saying or my circumstances. Like, I know that God knows the beginning and the end. And it's all for my good and his glory. The suffering is all for my good and his glory. And that's something that I've learned too. In seasons where I have been suffering, I've felt God closest to me. I've had such experiences and encounters, and I'm like, wow. Like, had I not experienced this, suffering, I would have not experienced any of this. I would have missed it completely. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to the If You Are podcast. And I will have all my links down below to my socials, TikTok, Instagram, Clapper, and everything. I'm gonna have all that down below. Subscribe and like if you're watching on YouTube, and please follow if you're on Spotify, if you're listening on Spotify. Thank you so much for listening to the If You Are podcast. I really hope that this blessed you guys and gave you a new perspective. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.